Welcome back to the channel. This is the Action Figure Grader, and we're going to look at the recent spring premiere auction that ended last night, June 1st, over at LCG Auctions. And I apologize, I did not even know this was going on. I would have alerted you guys to it and given you a preview video because there were some pretty awesome items in here. Not only Star Wars, but G.I. Joe, Transformers, Masters of the Universe, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and some pretty rare items. So we're going to go through the Star Wars items first, and then I picked some of the really big prices for closed auctions on some of the alternate toy lines that I just wanted to show you. But LCG Auctions did have a spring premiere auction, and again, I'm sorry, I didn't even know it was going on. So let's take a look. We've got some pretty big boy items here. We got a 12-back A Darth Vader with the SKU on the footer. AFA 85, straight 85s for the sub score. It was a punched example with a price sticker. But man, that's a pretty huge item, right? That's the earliest of the early 12-back A's for Darth Vader, straight 85s on the SKU footer 12-back A. So this was a big-time item. All of the prices I'm quoting in this video include the buyer's premium, which I believe is 20%. And I think you have to close your sales by Venmo. I'm almost positive. I'm not sure if they take PayPal or credit cards, but the last time I looked at their closing rules, you have to close by, Venmo. So, it doesn't seem to stop the bidding, at least in this auction. And this was a pretty amazing 12-back A that sold for $9,417. So a huge number there. They also had a made in Taiwan 12-back A R2D2 AFA 85. It was, of course, a yellowed blister. So take that for what you will there. I wanted to look at the grading label on this one, if I could find it. Let's see here. I don't see the grading label on it. Here we go. So that's pretty crazy. So this was a 12-back A, graded AFA 85, and this label shows as no yellow disclaimer on there. But when you look at the photos, obviously this has yellowed substantially, which is kind of odd. You don't really see that very often with 12-backs, where, occasionally you'll see it with the figures degrading, which is the case again with this figure. You can see that, I don't know if this is yellowing to the figure or if it's just the blister reflecting off of the legs or not. It looks like the figure is degrading as well, at least the legs on this R2D2. But obviously the blister has yellowed quite substantially. And don't get me wrong, a 12-back A R2D2 AFA 85 in clear blister, made in Taiwan, unpunched, no price sticker, it would normally go for more than $44, $46. But the only thing I can think of is that whoever owned this didn't store it properly. They didn't have it in a temperature-controlled environment. And even with some of my mint-on cards that are not nearly this valuable, number one. But, I've had a few that I've had for, let's call it 5 to 8 to 10 years. I don't know what the exact number is. But there's a few Return of the Jedis that have started to slightly yellow since I bought them. So that makes sense with Return of the Jedi items, but it doesn't really happen that much with 12-backs, at least for the blister. Obviously, the figures can degrade, like the Stormtrooper, the Princess Leia. We've talked about that at nauseum, but it's very rare to see it yellow for the blister. But I think that this is because of a storage issue. Whoever owned it just didn't have it properly temperature controlled. Next up was a 12-back B Darth Vader AFA 85 archival case. Beautiful example. Again, a punched example, but, well, I take it back. It's not so beautiful because the cape has some massive degradation going on. I didn't see that before. I apologize. But you can see the staining to the cape. And that's another one that you don't really see often. You don't usually see this kind of degradation to the Vader. You see it, obviously, with the Sand People. That's the big one, where that usually does, not usually, but it can degrade over time. But this is a first for me. I don't know if I've ever seen a stained, degraded cape for Darth Vader. And then obviously the vinyl cape Jawa is another one where we see the staining a lot. But I don't remember ever seeing, I've seen frosting on Vader before. This Vader doesn't seem to have any frosting, but that's a first for me, is seeing the stain to the cape there. But even with those issues, I mean, in my opinion, this sold for too much, $28.27 for a 12B with those staining. I mean, this is at best now an overall 75, in my opinion. A 12B Vader is not $2,800 in an AFA 75, in my opinion. So, you know, it was noted by the seller, you know, by the auction house, but that's pretty wild. That's pretty wild to see that kind of staining and that kind of price, despite the staining. Here was a 12-back B. This is the small head Han Solo 12-back B AFA 85 again. That one sold for $31.10. Pretty big number on that one. I didn't really see any issues with this one. Just looking at the figure there, I don't see any issues on this. It looks like it's fine to me. I mean, you could maybe make an argument that there's some blistering or something, some lipping going on the left-hand side of the blister seal. That's an argument you can be made there, but otherwise pretty clean. I didn't really see any other major issues with it, but that was a punched example. No price sticker, $31.10 for a 12B small head Han Solo. Here was a 12C R2-D2 with the 32-back sticker. This is a very desirable sticker because, you know, this was as the Empire Strikes Back was coming out with their first range of figures, you know, the first 31 or so, and they had some leftover 12Cs, so they slapped these collect all 32 stickers on the back to account for the excess inventory and the new line of ESB figures. So that's a pretty desirable variant. AFA 80, that sold for $26.82. Again, that number makes sense to me, just given the rarity of that sticker. Only one graded higher. Pretty amazing example. Pretty amazing. This is one of 31 AFA 80s. You know, is it? I don't know. I'm not saying I would pay $26.82, but to me, I understand it. I mean, it's a beautiful item. And those 32-back stickers on the 12-backs are very tough to find. You just don't see them pop up very much. They just had one of these in a lower grade, I believe. But this is yet another Miro Meccano Han Solo with the Luke Jedi inside, so a miscard. And they just had one in their last winter auction that I think was an AFA 40, if memory serves. And it sold for around the same price, $15, $13. That's about where they always tend to go. This is a fairly common, in terms of miscards, this is a fairly common miscard on that Meccano card back. Usually the Luke is packed without accessories or maybe just a pistol. And then it's on the Han Solo card back. It's a very desirable one, but it's not particularly rare. You do see this very often. So let's see. This is one of only 4 AFA 50 examples with 4 examples graded higher. Yeah, so there's 14 miscards for this in the AFA population report. So it's a fairly common one as miscards go. If there's 14 of them, that's kind of a lot for a miscard. So anyway, that one did sell for $15, $13. They all tend to go about that price, and they're always beat up, almost always beat up. I don't know if I've ever seen one in high grade. Every one I've seen like this is AFA 40s and 50s and things like that. I know that Blacked Out Ewoks on YouTube, I believe he has one of these. He's got a lot of really nice vintage Meccano and Tri-Logo miscards. So if you're not familiar with the Blacked Out Ewoks on YouTube, go check out his channel. But he's got some beautiful miscards like this, and I think he's got one of these as well. So that one again did sell for $15, $13. There were some beautiful proof cards, amazing proof cards in this auction. And I feel like we just saw some 45-back proof cards that just sold on eBay. I made a video on it, but it may not have aired yet. I think I've got it set for a while. I'm going to be traveling to the beach. But this 45-back Power Droid sold for $34.21. And, you know, looking back at the CIB 45 backs that sold, there was like 4 or 5 of them, and they were all substantially less than this number. So I think my instinct was correct when I made that video where I said, hey, these were good deals relative to where typically 45 backs go, proof cards go for. And this supports that. I mean, this sold for $34.21. There was an AT-AT driver, a Lobot, I forgot what else, but there was 2 or 3 others. Snaggletooth was an AFA 90, and even that one sold for less than this. So those auctions on eBay went for a song and a dance relative to some of these, but this one is kind of closer to fair market value. This is kind of the number I'm used to for ESB proof cards, and that one sold for $34.21. We had a Revenge of the Jedi AT-AT proof card, AFA 85, that sold for $16.64, a very fair number. That's a number I would have paid all day long for that particular character on the Revenge of the Jedi proof card. So good deal there. I mean, it's not a steal, but it's it's a fair deal. The IG-88 went for a lot of money, 2014. Not terribly surprising there. I think I sold my AFA 85 Bosk proof card for like 1900, somewhere in that ballpark. So this kind of supports that. This was an AFA 85 plus, and the IG-88 to me, I feel like is a little harder to find than the Bosk. The Bosk, it seems to come up pretty regularly versus the Revenge of the Jedi proof for IG-88. I don't know if we saw one of these in that early January or February Hakes auction where those pre-production proofs for IG-88 sold. I know that they had the Power of the Force that sold for huge money, 5 figures, but I thought that they had also a Revenge of the Jedi proof card, so you guys can go back on Hakes and compare it to what this one sold for. But this one was an AFA 85 plus, so it's a big number in terms of the grade, but I think the price was great. I mean, that's a very fair price for an AFA 85 plus. Here was a 65 back B R2D2 sensor scope, AFA 85 clear blister, $13.75. That is a massive number for a Return of the Jedi mint on card. It's not that rare, clear blister. I mean, the 65B R2D2 sensor scope, I feel like more often than not, it's clear blister versus yellowed. But it is high grade, straight 85s, and somebody was willing to pay up for it. That's a big number, big. That's way more than I would have paid, personally. I mean, top end, and even this is a stretch to me, would be 1,000. But that was a huge number. So congrats to the seller on that. Here was a 3-pack ungraded. This was a JCPenney, I believe, 3-pack. I don't know if it's JCPenney, but it's a Return of the Jedi 3-pack that came with Chewbacca and 2 Ewoks, which is kind of cool. They really should have included like Wicket, right? From when Chewbacca was coming out of the AT-ST walker, the chicken walker, and he had the 2 Ewoks with him. I thought it was like Tebow and Wicket, but remember they were kind of petting him. I always laughed pretty hard at that scene where they're kind of treating him like a dog. But it's a cool 3-pack. I just wish they had included Wicket instead of Chief Chirpa. That would have made more sense to me. But anyway, that one sold for $6.62. And then we had some other non-Star Wars items. There were a ton. I just wanted to show you some of the huge numbers that came out of this. But there were a lot of others. You can go to lcgauctions.com and check out the recently closed. If you're into other toy lines, they had everything. I mean, it was a beautiful lot of items. But this Scorponok AFA 80, this was kind of a later Transformer, if memory serves. 15,168. This is a huge box, but man, what a massive number on that. 15,168. They had a very rare Evil Warriors gift set, AFA 75. This is rare. This is hugely rare. I've only seen one other one of these, and it was on Facebook. There might have been one that sold on Hakes or something, or Heritage, but I've never seen it. But it's got Beastman, Skeletor, and Faker. 3 of the best villains out there, especially Beastman. Beastman was always my favorite. So that one sold for $16,684. Whoa, what a huge number. I don't know what the population report, let's see. To our knowledge, this is the only AFA graded example ever sold publicly. So that makes sense. I mean, I know I've seen one of these on Facebook or somewhere, but it may not have been for sale. It might have just been showing it off. But this is a super rare item. And this really brings back some memories. Trapjaw, Triclops. I had all these. Manny Faces, Ram. I literally had every one of those characters on the back there. Merman. I loved him. I don't think I had Tila. I don't think I ever got Tila. But I had every one of the other ones, though. Man, that really brings back some memories. But anyway, that one sold for a massive number. They had one of my favorite vehicles from G.I. Joe, which was the hydrofoil. That sold for $18.86 AFA 75. I had one of these loose complete in perfect condition. But man, that is awesome. That's a really awesome vehicle. That was probably my favorite G.I. Joe vehicle of all time. This was probably up there though. I played with this a lot growing up. This is the Dreadnought Thunder Machine. It's such a bizarre Mad Maxian type of item. It even included Thrasher, the driver, who looked like Mad Max. That sold for $4,140. AFA 90 example. See, the highest graded example. None graded higher or equivalent. So unbelievable. That's an unbelievable item, and great box art on that one. I love the Dreadnoughts. I love Zartan. I mean, that is just an awesome item there. So that sold for a huge number. We had the original Zard. This actually went for low, in my opinion. I don't know why this one went so low. I would have guessed a lot more than this, but this was an AFA 90. Oh, that's why it went so low. It's the Italian version. That's why it went so low. I was trying to figure out why it went so low, but you can see there it's got the Italian language on the back. I'd love to do some Italian for you guys. Troppi per essere elencante. No idea what that means. Pseudonym. Troppi per essere elencante. Mi dispiace. Formaggi assortiti. 1886 on that one. So that's why it went so low. I remember pulling this one up to make the video. And I was like, an AFA 90 Zartan sold for 1886? What? But it makes sense now. It was the Italian version. But still, that's pretty awesome. That's an awesome item. Interesting that it's orange, though. That he's got kind of an orange bike instead of the green that we're used to. And then this is a very rare item. This is the Cobra Command Attack Glider Viper. I never had this one. I always wanted it growing up, but this was featured in the beginning of every G.I. Joe cartoon, if you remember. That's a pretty awesome item. CAS 80 plus. It sold for $16,684. Holy moly, what an insane sales price, but that is rare. And then we had the Combat Jet Sky Striker, another classic G.I. Joe vehicle. That one sold for $12,535. That was an AFA 85. So there were a lot of other items in this auction, but I just wanted to show you some of the highlights. And if you're not on LCG, I mean, I would definitely register. It's a little bit complicated to register, but once you're in there, it's really easy to bid. I've bid on a few items over the years. I've just never won anything, but it's a really, really awesome lot of items. They have premier auctions every season, so there's like 4 of them. So they just had their spring. I'm assuming the next one will be like August or so for their summer premier auction. But I hope you enjoyed this look at recent sales over at LCG Auctions. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave me a like. Thanks again, and I'll be back soon.